Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use, tips a balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, this is a continuation from yesterday. These are Suicide and Violence D to N. This is Scientology. Entries by surname from D as in Delta to N as in Nancy, then by first name. D for Bruce Davis, a convicted member of Charles Manson's family. At one time, he was foundation staff at St. Hill. Vincent Bugliosi, in his book on Manson, asserts a relationship between Davis and the murdered teenage Scientologist, Doreen Gall. D for David Dewhurst, a public pre-clear who killed himself in his car behind the Vancouver mission. Another one in the car, you guys. You see, because they won't let him go anywhere. That is one way of putting it. He appears to have been one of those involved shortly before in the hit-and-run attack on Graham Lease, a successful mission holder who was persuaded into turning over his mission to the Sea Org. Graham died without recovering consciousness. Wonder if they told Dewhurst or Lease that they should go kill themselves. Graham died without recovering consciousness, and Dave Dewhurst's suicide followed soon after. The other person involved, name needed, also died in an accident within a year or so. In no police investigation. It's amazing. D for Gay Doucette. Hold on, I need to get my readers. D for Gay Doucette, suicide 1981. In 1980, Gay Doucette had left the Riverside Scientology mission. Imagine the LAPD has no idea about any of this, right? She had given all she owned to Scientology. She was persuaded to get a loan on her home to continue with Scientology. When she could not repay the loan, she lost the house. Her father, who had given her the down payment, was furious. She had due cause for a suit against Scientology, which was in big trouble over loans in Riverside. But she was not strong enough to stand up to the pressure of a suit. Imagine all these so-called men, threatening and intimidating this woman. It just makes me sick. Reminds me of what's going on in the Diddy suit right now. Makes me sick. A lot of men don't know how to be men. D for James Dries, 20 plus. SHOT, himself to death. Disconnection situation with one parent in, one out. So young. That's so sad to me. D for Jim Dalton, who supposedly had drug flashbacks from going too quickly onto mucusless diet in 1973. He was a Scientologist in Salt Lake City, and Jerry Knight, ED, is that executive director, told him the mucusless diet was what he needed. I answered the phone at the mission a couple of times when he was talking about the visions he was having. That's psychosis. You don't have to be a doctor to figure that out. D for Larry Dennison, who reportedly became suicidal after completing OT8. There we go again with the OT8s. That's why everyone on the outside, we're trying to tell you guys, don't waste your money. Get your family out. D for Martina Douglas of East Grinstead, committed suicide while on lines at St. Hill, UK. D for Roberto De Plano, 20, another baby. Isn't it magical? The magical number is 19, though. You guys should know why that is. I already talked about it. 20 of Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy, killed himself on 18 February 1997. He owed millions of lira to the Church of Scientology. A former executive of the church, who was also his cousin, was later sentenced to 4 years in prison for extortion. Isn't it interesting that the cousin's the only one that goes to jail, right? And no problem, no fines, Scientology's given or anything because the cousin's following Scientology policies? This is probably the same as Robert D., who in a different account jumped from the 8th floor of a building in Italy in March 1997. D for Rudolph Duncan, who on 5 April 1998 collided midair with an executive jet, killing 4 Atlanta lawyers. So he must have been a pilot. He died when his Cessna 172 crashed half a mile away. Do we know anything about his history as a Scientologist? Wow. That's diabolical. D for Teresa Duncan, 40. A celebrity who believed herself harassed by Scientologists. Threats and intimidation that's written right into their policies. Died from a drug overdose on 10 July 2007. A week later, her longtime boyfriend, Jeremy Blake, 35, drowned himself in the hope of rejoining her. Why am I reading this twice? I guess because there were 2 of them. They were friendly with Beck and his wife. Teresa claimed Beck wanted to escape from the cult. Who wouldn't want to escape? Opinion remains divided about the role of Scientology in this affair. No, there's no division. There's no division. We know Scientology was behind this. It's obvious. E for Don Edge, New Zealand suicide. E for Gary Epstein, Andre Taboyan, testified that he saw and heard the Hubbard tech of thought reform used to drive Gary Epstein to PTS, potential trouble source, type 3, psychotic break. I remember hearing from somebody, and actually a few people, that said this specific Hubbard tech of thought reform, that specific tech right there, which I imagine would be covered in a policy, is specifically made to cause psychotic breaks. To a PTS type 3 psychotic break is punishment for his refusal to comply with orders he received from the Wayne Marple mission. No names mentioned, of course. You guys ever notice that? E for Hans von Ettinger, Dutch, university graduate, went totally nuts after doing FPRD 2D. I don't know what that is. Well, 2D is a sex dimension. Is there like a specific sex check just for that? I can imagine how repugnant it is. And everybody's like, everybody's just so nice. And going clear at Flag Land Base in 2003. Probably a psychotic break. I'm going to take a picture of that. I got to go look that up and find out what that is. E for Mick Erickson, who became violent on OT6. I think a lot of these descriptions are talking about like some type of mental breakdown. Probably psychosis, where people start to get delusions. And poor Lisa McPherson, her little body wasn't strong enough to be locked up for, 17 days or something like that at Flag Base? Wonder what the Clearwater PD knows about that. E for Mike Erickson, who became violent on OT6, For a while at least, his wife had him barricaded in his house to stop him attacking someone, instead of taking him to a mental health professional. How many stories have we heard like this? I mean, like, at what point are other people liable? You know what I mean? Like, at what point? Yeah, there's coercion. Yeah, there's confusion, mind control. But, I mean, when do other people have to be held accountable? That's what I want to know. He signed a very unconvincing form letter complaining about this outrageous allegation. That kind of doesn't make a lot of sense right there. E for Robert Ellison, psychotic. He would wander down the street in his underwear if no one watched him. Of course, nobody could take him to the mental health professional, could they? You know, police couldn't do it. Scientologists couldn't do it. Wife couldn't do it. Family couldn't do it. Just let him walk down the street in his underwear, right? He had too much auditing that made him go psychotic? It just irritates me. He would wander down the street in his underwear if no one watched him. You know, like he didn't have a handler. Instead of contacting his parents, oh, so he was young. Oh, I'm going to snap. Because, you know, the parents don't have any accountability here, right? They don't have any accountability. Parents should have been involved regardless. I'm so tired of reading these stories. I really am. Instead of contacting his parents, he was guarded day and night, you know, handler. Go read Jenna Miscavige's book, please. Some of the time we kept him, you know, the ones with no names, at the Absolute Arms Hotel. There's another hotel. But according to Rinder, that was all like everybody was delusional regarding the hotels, right? Where a lot of Scientologists lived. I was told that some high-level staff members had taken him to the airport. You know, the staff members with no names, right? Minus any org identification. That right there reminds me of allegedly Quentin Hubbard had no identification. And just abandoned him there, hoping for the men in white coats would deal with him. Boy, tell me that's not nasty. I would like to know how old this kid was. So we don't find out what happened to him? Did he die or what? I don't want him to have died. So to me, that tells me that was the last they heard of him, so nobody really knows. Makes me sick. Tell me that's not aiding and abetting in a crime? Just like with all the Lisa McPherson stuff? E for the son of Maria Echevarria, who died unexpectedly in Clearwater, Florida. Must be the Magic City, huh? In 1991. I'm guessing this is a she. They're putting he, but she was claiming $50,000 from the church. There is suspicion that the son may have committed suicide. And the death was not just accidental. Like many other suicides, it was convenient for Scientology. That's what I've been saying all day long. A lot of these so-called suicides need to be like revisited, or whatever that word is. The word I keep forgetting. The one where they reopen the case. You know, if anybody had any kind of chutzpah, or maybe the excuse would be, we don't have the revenue for that. We're low on funds. We don't have enough manpower. It's always something. F is in Frank for Bud Fields. A Florida boat broker who was murdered in Florida in 1985. Couldn't have been a Scientologist, could it? You know, probably no investigation, because, you know, Scientology doesn't get investigated. You know, too much work for people. They're getting too much payments, you know, too many payments. He was blocking Church of Scientology's purchase. Oh, you guys know. You guys know. Imagine all these people died and there was no justice for any of them. He was blocking Church of Scientology's purchase of the former car ferry, Bohem, now MVF Rewinds. Wonder what Rander would have known about that one, huh? His household was infiltrated by a senior OSA operative. You know, the one with no name. Could it have been Rinder? Or Rathburn? I mean, granted, I'm not an ex-Scientologist. I don't know who all was working in there. But we know Rinder was at the top of the chain. We know Rathburn was. And there were some other ones that were up there. As far as I could see, none of these folks ever went to jail for any of their crimes either. Bonnie or Yvonne Mott posing as a nanny. So they infiltrated his house. It is alleged that she had been ordered by Marty Rathburn. Boy, listen to this, you guys. You heard it here, man. I think we need to get these folks on that list of... Oh, wait, you know what? That wouldn't be pertinent to Liz Gale's list because those are child Scientologists. Maybe we need to start another one. It is alleged that she had been ordered by Marty Rathburn of OSA to murder Bud Fields. Listen to that, you guys. I'm only reading it. Only reading it. I've been saying this, I don't even know, like, almost from day one after I watched the Aftermath show. Initially, I kind of liked Rinder a little bit. And then very shortly, I was like, I figured out he wasn't what he was portraying himself to be. Look at this. It is alleged that she had been ordered by Marty Rathburn of OSA to murder Bud Fields because he wouldn't sell his boat, La Boheme, to Scientology. I've been saying this, girl. I have been saying this. He was found floating in the sea at his home. Betcha there was no investigation into this death. With Fields out of the way, the sale went through within a week. And yet Marty Rathburn's still walking free. Everybody wants to talk about all these folks. They're such good people. I know there's some good Scientologists out there. I'm not saying. But what I'm saying is that you have to look at all these people that had either committed suicide or been murked. They were murked or coercively told they have to commit suicide. Not all of them were told to commit suicide, but the people who were doing it were Scientologists. Ain't enough mind control in the world to say that's okay to do. I'm going to take a picture of that too. I'll bet Bud Fields will never get justice, though. He's dead now. Whew. F for Christian Fauch, a French businessman in his mid-30s who lost his mind after attesting to solo knots. He was treated with the introspection rundown. He was hallucinating. He was seeing flying saucers everywhere. You ever notice it's always the spaceships and the flying saucers? Because that's when I think, you guys, it might be OT3, but I know by OT8 they for sure know. They find out that there's more Thetans. They talk, and then they find about the planet Tegiac and Zeno. He was hallucinating. He was seeing flying saucers everywhere and was convinced World War III had actually begun. And also, too, they didn't talk about, didn't L. Ron Hubbard talk about World War III a lot? No more info. F for Hugh Franklin, suicide. I always feel sad for these ones that are just so short and sweet. It's like, I feel that their lives were important. Like, I don't want to cry. It just makes me sad, you know? These people are worth being mentioned. If they were abusing children, then I don't feel bad, but F for Carrie Frost, a public Scientologist at Miami Org who died from injuries received in a car accident. I think a lot of these car accidents is these poor people were not getting any sleep at all. F for Michael Friedlich, 18. Oh, see, this time it wasn't 19, but it's always conveniently when they're a legal age. Isn't it amazing? Although we did see one child suicide in this. No justice for that kid. That was in the first section. Who committed suicide in September 2006. It is said that his mother was advised to get Michael a psychiatric evaluation for his severe chronic depression. Imagine that these parents, and not just a lot of it is parents, they deny their children, or even if they're 18 or above, they prevent them and do all these coercive things to not let them go to get mental health treatment. And sometimes they go psychotic, they wind up killing their parents, or they kill someone else, or they commit suicide, all because these fools don't want to let their children go to a mental health facility. It's just disgusting. To get Michael's psychiatric evaluation for his severe chronic depression, but she was and is a Scientologist, and so did not bother. She has been heard to say that her son's suicide was okay because he was obviously indwelt by an undesirable that the faith wasn't able to cleanse. She should be charged with some type of coercion, in my opinion. It's disgusting. I don't care about the mind control. That's just like, where's the line drawn? You know what I mean? Where is there some kind of judicial accountability? Where's there justice for these children, or even for the adults that were tortured? F for Peter Ernst Frey, 37, from Switzerland, still young, drowned at Clearwater. Imagine the Clearwater PD walking around like they don't know about all this stuff. Sickening. I mean, in fairness to the cops, they would need backup. They can't just go in there and break it up. It's not that easy. Drowned at Clearwater in June 1988 while staying at the Fort Harrison Hotel. Another Fort Harrison Hotel death. I did start a Fort Harrison Hotel playlist. I probably should get back to that. It's going to require me to do a lot more work. Frey's parents say he left home with 20,000 Swiss francs, about $13,000, and had already paid the church more than 40,000 francs for counseling sessions, auditing by children, before he left home. As Florida authorities tried to identify him, you mean Clearwater PD? Frey's apartment in Switzerland was burglared and ransacked. Must be a coincidence. Adding to suspicion surrounding his death, would the medical examiner, was he a paid-off one? I suspect a lot of these examiners are paid off. Go look into the whole Lisa McPherson thing. The first examiner was honest. It's crazy. Wood, the medical examiner, went to the scene with when Frey was found. She remains troubled about his death. Well, there's somebody honest. It's finally nice to see someone who's honest. She attributed it to drowning, but now says many questions remain. Frey had scrapes on his arms and cuts. I've been talking about this forever. These people need to have some kind of justice. Frey had scrapes on his arms and cuts on his head, and enough fluid in his chest to have drowned. But he was wearing shoes and socks and shorts. What's a fully clothed man doing dead in the water? Yeah, unless he was killed first and thrown in the water. That's what it seems like. Wood asked, clearly this death should be reinvestigated. Yeah, how about that, FBI? How about that? We still don't know what happened. Frey's parents said he could not swim and would not have gone near the water. My opinion. Who put him in the water and who drowned him? Been saying this, man. Some of these people don't deserve to be saved. Some of them do, though. It's like the Matrix movie that I love so much. My favorite quote is when Neo says, I forgot who he was saying it to. I think someone was talking to Neo, and Neo turned around. He was walking, and he said, you saved yourself. F for Ruben Joseph Flores Sr. from McKinney, Texas. Prominent fast food owner committed suicide on 28 March 2002 after being sent for Scientology ethics handling. Yeah, imagine that all these policies are so coercive and controlling that people feel no other way out but to kill themselves. And yet they've never been entered into a court of law, maybe once or twice. And Scientology, of course, fought tooth and nail against it. It's time for a revamp. Got to give it to them. They go for the successful people with money. In a lot of ways. F for Stephen Fishman, a former Guardian's Office OSA operative, who reported that after he was caught by the government in 1986, he was ordered to commit suicide. Wait a minute, wasn't Rinder in OSA during that time? You guys, wasn't Rinder and Rathburn in OSA in 1986? Plot thickens. Amazing how I can find all this stuff. And a lot of the people working with me, well, not with me, but, we're all working toward the same goals, child advocates. He was ordered to commit suicide to save Scientology from being exposed for crimes he had committed on their behalf. He later had psychiatric treatment. Wouldn't you love to hear what he has to say now if he's still living? I would. It's time for people to start coming out of the woodwork and talking. F for William Fisk was murdered. As an auditor, he abused his position in the church to get sex from a married Scientologist. Russell Johnson, her husband, SHOT, him. We've heard some weird stories about the auditors. G for Alan Green, who committed suicide. Any more information, anyone? G for Carol Gluchaki. Suicide after 1980, no further information. G for Chris Garrison, who had a complete character transformation at one point in Scientology where they broke his spirit. That's the black magic, you guys. Everybody's spirits are being broken in Scientology, purposely. A lot of them are not aware of it, but that's exactly what's happening. I don't know if he went over the edge or what. Chris is still in Scientology after a failed deprogramming attempt by his family. G for Doreen Gall, 19. There's a magic number. Clear, murdered with 2 others in Los Angeles, August 1969. See Bruce Davis above, Manson article. Also, whyaretheydead.info. According to Bugliosi, she had once had a relationship with Bruce Davis, one of Charles Manson's gang and a former or active Scientologist. Isn't that great? G for Dorothy Geary. Became psychotic in San Francisco. Another report says Dorothy Geary was in her 20s and places her in Hemet. Imagine that the Hemet police are just driving around there I've heard stories that the Hemet police get dinners over there at the INT base, as well as the LAPD officers. Isn't that wonderful? I wonder if the PD gets ethics handlings as well. I think maybe they deserve an ethics handlings, some of them. Don't you guys think? Alongside with the children. Maybe if we're lucky, the PD can get some child auditors. That'd be awesome. G for Gloria Cervas, who was found wandering down the middle of Beacon Street, major heavy traffic street in Back Bay, Boston, where the org is while on auditing in late 1970s. I hate when they don't give us what happened, G for Jairus Chigeto Godeka, 38. They love to extract them from Africa. I bet you they had his passport, too. Don't you guys think? I'll bet they had Jairus' passport and wouldn't give him his passport. A Kenyan who appears to have been driven out of his mind by Scientology. Another one. Oh, this is one I had never heard of. Why did I not? Or maybe I did. Okay, he SHOT 4 of the staff at the Portland org on 25th September 1996. All of them survived. Church of Scientology, of course, denied any link with Godeka. And how they get away with this is truly beyond me, right? But the facts add up. He appears to have become an adherent in 1980. Wonder if they brought him over on an R1 visa. I mean, maybe he was living in America. I shouldn't just assume. An adherent in 1980 and was demanding a refund of $50,000. You guys know they don't give the refunds back. But I think it's time the authorities start demanding that Scientology starts to give people their refunds back. Don't you guys think? Yeah, I think it's time. This should be good. One of the arresting officers says, he's not that crazy. And his complaints about the cult stealing his money and invading his mind are exactly what the cult does. Well, finally, we got an officer that is decent. As a Kenyan, his venture would be paid for by his whole family, who would expect to benefit once he was established in America. So then they did get him on R1 visa. But as he told police, his dream faded to gloom and doom. That's so sad. After he was introduced to the Church of Scientology in 1980. In October 2010, after 13 years in a mental hospital, he had been given more freedom. The church is worried, not without reason. They would have been wiser to give him back his money. Yeah, they sure would have. I don't agree with him doing that thing to the people, but I can understand why people, G for John Griffin. Suicide in Dallas, 1978 to 79, was OT2. G for the daughter of Maria Pia Gardini, who died on 18 November 1990 of AIDS contracted when she used a dirty needle given to her by another drug user while being treated at Narconon. They don't even have, at that time especially, they didn't even have medical doctors in there. They should have. She was 29 years old and an OT7 when she died. Something about that doesn't add up to me. Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking? Scientologists don't use drugs, but be a great way to discredit her, but I don't know. I don't know the whole story. G for Michael Gutman. One of twins committed, that's heartbreaking. I wish Aaron Smith Levin would get all these names on his channel. I suppose I should be vetting this out, but I'm just reading. People have already done the research. One of twins committed suicide in 1972. That makes me particularly sad. Well, here's Philip Gale. G for Philip Gale, computer prodigy and former Scientologist. A first-year student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Killed himself on Friday the 13th, March 1998, Ron Hubbard's birthday, by jumping out of the window of a 15th floor classroom. They weren't letting him do what he wanted to do. And I wonder if he had wanted to get out of Scientology. I believe he's fourth generation. I think Liz Gale said that. I think fourth. Third or fourth. Philip C. Gale drew a physics formula on a blackboard, showing what happens when a body falls from a great height. Oh, that hurts me. Then he slammed a chair through the classroom window and jumped more than 200 feet to his death. Yeah, and where were people to help him? Nowhere. Child Scientologist. As horrified students watched from a plaza below, Gale was known to be suffering from depression, but had not sought help. He was depressed because of Scientology, but had not sought help from the school's counseling service. Perhaps because of his upbringing as a Scientologist. Gale had left the cult, but he still killed himself. Oh, you know what? Something's missing. Was he disconnected? He still killed himself on 13 March. His father had died 2 years earlier of a heart attack, aged 47. There's that number again. His mother, Marie Gale, remained in the church. She was a spokesperson for CCHR. Is she working alongside of Jan Eastgate? Yeah, I know Jan changed her name, but she's still Jan Eastgate to me. You know, Jan Eastgate, she covered up child sexual abuse and really didn't have to pay no dues or anything. The anti-psychiatry front. If Philip had in fact left the church, or the cult, this would normally have led her to break any contact with him. Yeah, the disconnection. I think something's missing in this, but that's okay. Leaving him alone. I mean, they did bring it up. That one always just gets me. G for Victor Gunnarsson died somewhere between 3 and 7 January of 1994. He was the individual acquitted in the assassination of Sweden of Olof Palme, the high-ranking Swedish politician. The police found evidence for Gunnarsson's connection to Scientology, e.g. a number of Scientology books at his home. A reporter mentioned a $2 million offer to assassinate Palme being found or implied somewhere in his records. Huh, looks like they left something out there, doesn't it? Wonder how old he was. H for Adam Hebelwhite of East Grinstead. Apostate Alex would probably be interested in these East Grinsteads. Of East Grinstead, Sussex, cuts his throat around 2000. He was at university and getting auditing at St. Hill. His sister Claire is still in. Both were programmed to be cult victims. Is that Claire Headley's brother? I mean, I don't know what year this was printed, because she's from England. Both were programmed to be cult victims at Greenfield School. I think it is. Mother Wendy, OT5, died of cancer in 2002. Father Ian died a year later, perhaps of cancer. Unfortunately, so many of them don't get the medical care that they need. H for Arlene S. Heller. The stress Scientology put her family through caused a mental breakdown and suicide attempt. In September of 1981, her daughter was a member. H for Bill Howey. Psychosis on OT3. He was a high-level long-term Sea Org executive. His wife was a deputy CEO of Celebrity Center. H for Bjarne Hedam in Denmark, who hung himself. H for Diana Hubbard Horwich, said by several sources to be close to the edge of a psychotic break in 1980-81. And you know what the rumors are about her father, right? There's rumors. All you have to do is just do a quick Google search, and there were several people that had audited L. Ron Hubbard, who admitted to, you know what, his daughter. It's public knowledge. I'm not saying anything that's not out there. H for Dick Halprin, committed suicide in the early 1960s. He was the author of the Whole Track Security Check. H for Dorian Hale, a happy, talented guy, but an alcoholic, who was persuaded to try a Scientology cure. He tried it and liked it, but then they rejected him because of his past use of psych drugs. Wow. So he killed himself. His friend commented, I know in Scientology they say psych drugs and alcohol are really bad for you, but they cannot be worse for you than being dead. H for Geil de Hosped, a Dutch baroness. Oh, you know they wanted her money. She probably had some money. Who suffered complete and permanent memory loss after OT8. Wow. Wow. I've heard, you know what? I've heard a lot of stories about people that suffer memory loss. There's something with this mind control that takes people's memories. And it also could be the trauma. Enough trauma will make you block memories out, which is different. H for Hanno Hitjan, who died when making BOMBS at his home in Sweden in 1983. You guys know. That's a weird. Oh, maybe they blew when he was making them? I wish they would explain a little more. H for Isabel Harmon, who went to St. Hill for OT levels. She had been on staff in Melbourne in the early days, and then in Adelaide. She was energetic, competent, and very knowledgeable. She returned from St. Hill after being sent home while still on OT2. No explanation, of course. She appeared to be completely disoriented and irrational. She was missing. The condition calmed and she is living quietly, but according to her husband, Ray, the real person is still not there. Boy, that's sad. I've heard a lot of stories like this. It just reminds me, like on a spiritual level, that they're extracting people's souls. I mean, it's just similar, you know. H for Jean Louis H., who died in a car accident. There's another car accident. On 4 December 1990. Suicide or murder. Also, I want to bring up, we have to wonder how many of these so-called car accidents are purposely like suicide by car. I wonder about that. Because then your family will get the benefits if you have insurance. He had routed out of Scientology on 15 May, but at the end of August, he said he had been threatened. If he would not work for Scientology, he'd work for no one else. H for Jim Hester, who was a pre-clear at the Miami org in the mid to late 1970s, who attempted suicide in Miami and was hospitalized in critical condition. He left a suicide note blaming Scientology. Wonder if he lived. I like all this information. I'm grateful, but I just wish they would have, let us know. Did he live through it or what? H for Joe Harrison, longtime Scientologist, Sea Org member and carpenter from Los Angeles, died in 2003 while working on Building 50 at Hemet. This is another accident? David Miscavige's 70... No, it's not David Miscavige's. It's Scientology's. David Miscavige's $70 million monument to greed and egomania. Everybody's in on it. I just stop with all the David Miscavige talk. I'm tired of it. Having been working excessively long hours, Joe forgot to put up the kickstand on his motorcycle. Oh my God, this is sad. And lost his life only yards away from the entrance of Golden Era Productions. Imagine all these people dead and all these authorities didn't do anything. K for Karen or Karen Holmenberg, suicide. H for Laura Hippie, who killed herself circa 1986. A Hollywood drama teacher and girlfriend of Skip Press, who was a very good friend of Heber Jensch. Lots of real shady stuff went around with this Heber Jensch guy. And everybody's like, oh, we need to get him out. Then president of the Church of Scientology. And also, too, I remember one of these other stories I read, you guys probably heard it, where Heber Jensch was physically restraining someone from not leaving Scientology. They created a shore story, a lie, to cover up this event and remove all evidence that would implicate Scientology in the death before the police arrived. I think there was more to this than we're hearing. Because I'm going to read it again. A Hollywood drama teacher and girlfriend of Skip Press. I wish I knew who this Skip Press was supposed to be. Who was a very good friend of Heber Jensch. That's enough for me to read. You guys know. H for Lauren and Hervey Hevar, age 18 months, Canadian twins. Oh my God. How many babies and children's deaths, and nobody did anything. These are the ones we know about. Who were killed 28 September 1996 in Amager, Denmark, by a deranged babysitter. Sounds kind of like a Scientology nanny to me, don't you think? Oh, you know what? I remember hearing about this a long time ago. They were blank mutilated with scissors, and then blank by their babysitter, an aspiring Scientologist, Ludmila Vasilyeva. She had a history of mental problems and had been under psychiatric care in Italy. She tried to join Scientology in Denmark but was denied membership because she had had psychiatric treatment. This unstable woman, unmedicated over several months, was nevertheless allowed to work as a housemaid. Listen to this closely, you guys. You see how people try to squeeze out of responsibility? Listen to this very closely. Was nevertheless allowed to work as a housemaid and babysitter for a French-Canadian Scientologist couple, Amy and Debbie Hever. They didn't mind getting some free slave labor, though. And I'm sorry for what happened to their babies. I mean, nobody deserves that. But I don't even like reading this one. After K-ing the babies, she dressed them and drove them around Amager in a baby carriage before delivering them and herself to the police. The Hivers blamed the death of their twins on the psychiatric care Vasilyeva had received years earlier. Can you believe the ignoramus? Did they take responsibility for just getting free labor anywhere? On the psychiatric care Vasilyeva had received years earlier, and on psychiatry in general. Toronto Star, 1st October 1996. And there is a link if you guys want to look at that article. Age for Marjorie E. Hunt, died aged 84 in 2002. A rare example of an old Scientologist who lived a normal life and died a natural death. I don't know why she's even in here. No offense. No offense. She enjoyed gardening, music, flowers, traveling, and activities with the cult of Scientology. This should have a lot more information. I'm disappointed. Tells you a lot. Age for Quentin Hubbard, older son of Hubbard, and his third wife, Mary Sue, OT7, and a Class 7 auditor. He probably started auditing as a child as well, because you know. Watch how many discrepancies we see between all these stories about Quentin Hubbard. Class 7 auditor died in hospital. Listen to this, you guys. Oh, we all need to really get into this one. This is completely different than what we heard before. Remember the one I read yesterday? There were two different excerpts that I read from different articles. They said that Quentin Hubbard was found in the car. Remember that? Well, maybe, I suppose that could be about right. If they did, because remember I was talking about unconscious or dead. if he really was unconscious, then maybe they did take him to the hospital. That would make sense. Died in hospital in Las Vegas after being found unconscious in a mocked-up suicide in a sealed car. I don't even like how they put these stupid Scientology phrases in there. It wasn't mocked up. It was a suicide attempt, period. And I think there was foul play, my opinion. J for Albert Jacquier of Switzerland. Swiss chef might be interested in some of these. And self-made millionaire, went clear in 1980, was declared PTS-SP in 1990 and died aged 59 on 11 December 1994. After 14 years in Scientology, he had given the cult everything he possessed, because they're a parasite, including several $1 million. His ex-wife, Ariane Jackson, said he died alone, impoverished, in misery, betrayed, disillusioned, depressed, and less than 60 years old. Scientology had promised him freedom, health, happiness, success, immortality, power, and longevity. In the hope of achieving these, he had given till he had no more to give. So, where does our forgiveness begin? You know what I mean? Like, yes, people do things under duress and coercion, but it's the other Scientologists that are hurting Scientologists. J for Bo Johnson, former AG, Sweden, suicide. J for Judy Johnson, formerly Mace. Not a strong personality. What is that supposed to mean? What is that supposed to mean? Former wife of Paul Mace. Is this related to the Mace Kingsley? Former wife of Paul Mace, who was driven by suicide by the PREC ethics handling. We need to start looking into some more of these ethics handlings because the children are getting them, FBI. Maybe pre-clear ethics handling she was getting. Alternately, if you believe the cult, she fell under a train when she slipped on ice. Just listen to that, you guys. I don't buy that for 1 minute. Not 1 minute. You're not going to slip on ice in front of a train. Someone threw her there. That's what I believe, and I won't change. I think a lot of these women are getting raped by the men, too, and what better way to cover up the evidence, especially if they get pregnant? I'm just saying, I don't know if this was what happens to her, but I believe that with all my heart. This was in November 1983, 3 months after Paul died. Wow. In November 1983. She had divorced Paul Mace before 1977 and later married Howie Johnson. Not a lot of information here, except that she was getting an ethics handling. They got to punish people all the time. You pay all your money and you're going to get punished. J for Larry Ann Johnston, who committed suicide in the mid to late 1980s by throwing herself off a bridge into freeway traffic in Los Angeles. She did this because Scientology would not help her after it alienated her from her husband and family. Let's put it in there. Disconnected. HEW 197 Alpha, whatever that is. J for Lee Johnstone. Suicide at East Grinstead, 1985. Guardian's office staff member. Think the guy knew too much? You got to look at... I really wish I had the time and energy to do timelines and all this stuff. We could actually go back and see who were in these offices when these people allegedly suicided. K for Jane King, 28, an actress murdered in November 1977. She was the seventh victim of the serial killer's cousins, Ken Bianchi and Angelo Bueno Jr., known as the Hillside Stranglers. As a targeted prostitute, she may have been... Oh, I don't buy this, you guys. You know why I don't buy this? Because I remember reading about Paulette Cooper. They try to make her out to be a prostitute. That's just one of the things these misogynist, narcissist, Scientologist, deluded monsters try to make the women. I don't buy this. Why? Well, I'm not even going to read this. It's just making me sick. Always to discredit the women. K for Jeremy Kosovitz, a young person on auditing. A young person, you guys, see? Every time you get into Scientology, it's a miracle. There's no longer children, they're a young person. And this goes for some of the ex-Scientologists as well. A child on auditing lines at Celebrity Center, he hung himself. So this is the second child suicide that I've covered here. I wonder if this is the person that, I think this is the person that Nora Ames had talked about, Jeremy Kosovitz. And I think a lot of them are doing this after auditing or all these ethics handlings. K for Jim Keith, 49. Hold on a minute. Oh, I went way past. I went really far. 12 September 1949 to 7 September 1999 in Nevada. Was the author of Black Helicopters Over America, Saucers of the Illuminati, and the Octopus. Co-written by Ken Thomas, which details conspiracy theories. You guys know what I think about that term. Around the death of reporter Danny Casolaro. You know what they do to truth tellers, right? They just take you out. In 1970s, after publishing an article on Dianetics in his sci-fi fanzine, Untitled, Keith became fascinated with Scientology. He later worked on staff of Scientology missions at Riverside, California, and Reno, Nevada. In the early 1990s, he left Scientology after being introduced to the Harry Palmer Avatar material. He apparently died of a blood clot after surgery for a broken leg, but the coroner's report gave cause of death as blunt force trauma. There you go, you guys. Can we have inquests into these people's deaths? Maybe get the families involved? That'd be nice. So you got a guy right here who died of blunt force trauma and no arrests are made. It's all a big mystery, isn't it? K for John Kennedy, director of the Scientology Institute in Bulawayo, Africa. They plan to leave Hubbard and set up a squirrel organization. For anybody who doesn't know what a squirrel organization is, it's basically people that want to leave Scientology, like the official church, and start their own like independent Scientology. That's what that means. Called the Institute of Mental Health. Kennedy died shortly thereafter in a shooting accident. It is said he blanked himself accidentally while cleaning his revolver. I mean, listen to that story. I don't buy that for a minute. State of the Daily Mail on July 14th, 1968. But an open verdict was returned by the coroner. K for John Kramer. John W. Kramer Sr., formerly of York, moved to Costa Rica in 1985 after murdering David Arts as part of an insurance scam. 14 years later, immigration agents in Atlanta, Georgia, arrested Kramer as he re-entered the country for medical care. Court documents describe him as a Scientologist, Father John, who converted Arts to the religion and used its doctrines to influence his business decisions, and who attested clear in 76, and again in 1978. Kramer and his partner Samuel G. Lombardo had run similar insurance scams against other business owners during the previous 2 decades. Florida prosecutors charged in 1990 These involved repeated attempts on the life of an Illinois businessman in the early 1970s. After Kramer insured his life, the staged death of a York contractor for insurance proceeds, the attempted murder of a Stone business owner who had agreed to a partnership with Kramer, and the blank shot death of Roy Ham, a York man, after Kramer insured his life. And that's from Rick Ross's site. K for Keith Klein, a person from Detroit who had money. He was an Osho briefing course supervisor in 1977 to 1978, and around 1978 he was an OT3. This is when it starts breaking down. The Guardian's office called him back for more auditing because they knew he was suicidal after auditing. You guys know they're not allowed to be like that, right? They'll either let you go, they'll let you leave, or depending on how much money you have, will determine what they do. Called him back for more auditing because they knew he was suicidal after auditing on family problems. His father's suicide. Could that be like, in a way, they got his ruin, in a sense? The auditing may have made him worse. Of course it did. He left staff, was put in a mental institution by his family, and then blanked himself. That's sad. K for Mark Kabat. Suicide, no other information available. I have to wonder where a lot of these folks, like, what their country of origin is as well. K for Murray Don Kaplan is a Sea Org member who was deprived of sleep for 72 hours in Edinburgh, Scotland. He was an OT3 and had a psychotic break and was put on baby watch. Did the sleep deprivation drive him over the edge? Might have. But again, I think it's the sleep deprivation definitely causes problems. But I think a lot of it is this auditing, probably mixed with the sleep deprivation. There's actually been studies that prove sleep deprivation can cause psychosis. I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's research studies that show it. K for Noel King went over the edge on OT3. It's always the magic numbers here. Like OT3 and above, that's when people start really having problems because they know they've been scammed. K for Noel King went over the edge on OT3 about 1976. He sold an enormously successful resort in the Bahamas. They love that, don't they? They got to get that money. And moved to Los Angeles to become a full-time Scientologist. He was treated like a god since he still had lots of money. That's that narcissism thing. From the sale of his assets. Noel stopped being able to sleep properly while on OT3. I went for a walk with him in the middle of the night down Hollywood Boulevard. He told me that he kept seeing himself being pulled into some sort of force field and then back out of it. And he couldn't stop these pictures from flashing, and he couldn't sleep properly. He also thought he'd been Jesus Christ and Napoleon in previous lives. I don't know what happened to Noel. When I asked about him in 1988, no one at Flag seemed to recognize his name. I personally think a lot of these grounds need to be dug up. I do. I said it. K for Pius Keel, 22. A confirmed Scientologist who blanked himself in Germany in 1991. 22 years old, you guys. By throwing himself under a train. He got involved with the Narconon swindle, and on 14 September 1990, after less than 2 months at Narconon, packed his bags and threw himself under a train. I wonder if he had originally gone into Narconon just for some treatment and then they converted him. Sad. Sad. K for Ray Kundal, who died in a car accident. There's another car accident. I really wish we had some kind of stats. I know Mona started a really nice stat list. We probably should add this. K for Ray Kundal, who died in a car accident. He was on his way home from work late at night when a drunk ran a red light and smashed into his car. K for Ryan Coogler, who attempted suicide at Delphi, Oregon. Is that at the Delphi school? Oh, yes, it is, you guys. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And you know what they're being investigated for right now. And the cops are all like, oh, no problem. Children getting molested, getting raped, no problem. K for Ryan Coogler, who attempted suicide at Delphi, Oregon. Aged about 10. So now we got an attempted suicide, 10-year-old. And we've got 2 confirmed child suicides. And still nobody's doing anything. By hanging himself. Aged about 10 in 1984-85 by hanging himself. He was kicked out of school. Could he have been being molested? Or ARD? I'll bet he was. He was kicked out of school, and who were the teachers back then? See, that I blame a lot of these people that are part of the problem. They're part of the cover-up. He was kicked out of school but admitted to LA Delphi about a year later. Well, I didn't know LA had one. Do they still? About a year later and back to Delphi, Oregon, about 1988 to 1990. He stayed in Scientology and worked for a Scientology company. What else could he do? I'd like to know more about him. I'm going to start highlighting these child attempted and successful suicides. I think I'm going to stop there. We're already over an hour. So I got all the way up to the L's. No, I'll finish the L and then... Hold on here. Why do we have M's and L's mixed? Okay. Hold on a minute. Yeah, I finished with the K's, so I will continue with the L's either later today or tomorrow. I'll leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.